How's it going, everyone? Welcome back to Hot Takes with Holmes here on Radio Free Radford. My name is Blake Holmes, and as always, I'm here with my co-host, Isaiah Addair. Stick around with us. Today, we're going to be talking about the recent action around the NBA, NCAA, and the Alliance of American Football. But first, like we always do, I want to go ahead and plug the social medias here for Radio Free Radford. Their Twitter is at Radio Free Raddy, and Instagram and Facebook are Radio Free Radford. Be sure to like and follow those social media pages to be able to keep up with the content that gets posted here to this online station each and every day. And of course, be able to keep up with what times shows like us and plenty others ran by students will be going live here on the station. So as I said, here we are. We're going to start talking about the NBA, or we're going to start like we always do with the NCAA basketball this time of year, and talk about Radford. So Radford dropping a surprising game this week. Honestly, at home, Charleston Southern comes in after a thrilling game. Or excuse me, that was not Charleston Southern on the road. Defeating the Highlanders 53-52 after Radford going off of two straight overtime wins, and that was actually the only game they played this week. They will have both Winthrop and Hampton coming up. Hampton, one of the overtime games that I was just mentioning, as it went into overtime after Carly Jones with some late game heroics. But once again, Charleston Southern gets a big time win in the Dedman Center. And Isaiah, what do you think this does for the Highlanders? They currently sit at 10-2 in the Big South, 18-8 total. And they still are in a pretty good spot to get the number one seed in the Big South. I believe, last I checked, I could pull them up right here. The last I checked, they were like 2 or 3 games ahead of the second seed, which at that point was Winthrop. So what do you think? How do you think the Highlanders will take this loss? And do you think this was a good loss for them, or do you think this was just a loss that shouldn't have happened?
I think it was a good loss. For one, they still only need to win 2 or 3 more games for the rest of the regular season to clinch the number one seed. If they win their next 2, I think Winthrop might be one of them, and I forget who the next one is. But if they win 2 games, 2 of the next 3 or whatever, they've pretty much got it clinched. I think it's a good loss because the games like that, the sloppy games, when the past few went to overtime a couple of games, probably shouldn't have even been to overtime. But getting play like this out of the way before March Madness starts, you're able to fix the errors that you're making, not make them again, and compete when March begins. So I like that they're losing now rather than later, and I think it helps.
Well, in other Big South news, it's important, and they will be facing this familiar face here soon. Chris Clemens from the Campbell Fighting Camels recently eclipsed 3,000 career points on the college level. Only, I believe it's like 7 other players have done that in the NCAA's history. So he is definitely joining some elite company up towards the top, and they will have him, I believe it's the last game of the season. They actually have Campbell, which is correct, and that will be at Campbell because remember, Chris Clemens hitting a clutch 3-point shot at the buzzer to beat the Highlanders in the Dedman Center earlier this season. Of course, as I said, Winthrop, they are a game and a half back. Campbell is now 2. So the way this works is if Radford can defeat Winthrop on Thursday at home, be sure to tune in, come out to that game. Once again, pack out the Dedman Center for a huge Big South game. If they can pull out a win against Winthrop, then I believe if everything plays their cards right, if they beat Campbell as well, they only have to win 1 other game out of those 4. So 3 out of 4 is a definite clinch. Could still get some help from other teams. They're in a good position right now. And going off what you said, it is a good loss. It's definitely not a bad loss by any means. Charleston Southern, not a scoff of a team by any means. They are currently 6-6 in the conference, but Radford going through and getting this wake-up call on the road. Again, Charleston all the way in South Carolina, so that's not necessarily a quick trip. But being able to take this loss and going into Winthrop, in fact, Winthrop might want to look out because Radford's going to be coming back with a little bit of a vengeance. Going into a more national scale like we usually do, the AP polls came out this week, and we see some shifting. Tennessee dominated on the road by Kentucky in Rupp Arena. We talked about how Kentucky was gaining momentum once again compared to what we thought they were going to be at the beginning of the season, and now here they are, 21-4. They, like I said, just destroyed the number 1 team in the country on their home floor. They still got to go to Knoxville later on this season. They still have some tough teams to play, but the rankings sit right now. The Duke Blue Devils move back into the number 1 spot after another successful week. Zion Williamson winning Player of the Week in the AP Polls Eyes. Gonzaga is the number 2 seed, 25-2. Once again, Gonzaga, after dropping a couple of games early, they have defeated Duke earlier in the season, and now they're at the number 2 spot. Still not the highest they've been this season. Number 3 is Virginia at 22-2, moving up a spot this week. Once again, they beat Virginia Tech this past week as well. Number 4 is Kentucky, 21-4. Once again, Tennessee, that game is so important. And number 5 is Tennessee, moving all the way from the 1 down to the 4 after that game in Nevada. Rounding out the top 7 is Nevada at 24-1 and Michigan at 23-3. What are your thoughts on these rankings? Do you think that this is fair? Do you think that the loss of Kentucky warrants that far of a slot? Or do you think that's a good thing for the Vols? As, like I said, just a big-time performance from the Kentucky Wildcats at Rupp Arena.
I'll say the thing that sticks out to me the most is Nevada's just right outside the top 5. I like that they're inching their way up into the top 5. But yeah, Tennessee dropping 4 spots after 1 loss. I mean, yeah, it's their second loss of the year, but every one of the top 5's got at least 2 losses. Tennessee is not, they lost to a good Kentucky team. And to think that Kentucky jumped them, Tennessee, 4 people jumped in front of Tennessee with a loss. And Kentucky beat, Kentucky may have been the better team that game. But I just don't see how the argument can be made that Tennessee is now went from being the best team in the nation to the 5th best team in the nation because of 1 loss. It was an ugly loss, but that happens. We see the Golden State Warriors do it every year. Yeah, it's a different level of basketball, but it's still basketball. They'll win a game by 50, the next game lose by 20. It's how basketball goes. It's how sports go. Doesn't mean you're a worse team. It doesn't mean you slide down 4 spots to rankings because of 1 loss to a good team at that.
I do agree with you in a sense. I don't know if I agree if it warrants 4 spots down. If there's a top 5 team that I have a problem with right here, Kentucky's always won. They're 21-4, but still, they just beat the number 1 team. They have momentum. They are a good basketball team right now, so you can warrant them being in the top 5. My main issue is Gonzaga. I know Gonzaga beat Duke earlier this season. Once again, I can't talk about it enough. The Maui Invitational is a great tournament. It's fun to watch. It's really not that big of a deal, though, because it's a preseason tournament. A lot of the players are not used to the systems that they're running, are not used to their teammates yet, and that's just how it is. So once again, going up and having to once again face off in a preseason tournament, Gonzaga got a big win against Duke. And, of course, Duke lost to Syracuse at home as well. But Gonzaga, 25-2, I understand they have 2 more losses, but I don't understand why they warrant all the way up to the number 2 spot in these recent rankings. Because, like I said, I know they're on a little bit of a tear, and Gonzaga's always going to be a tough out. They're never going to be an easy team to knock out of the tournament. But for them to be the number 2 spot and actually receiving 6 first-place votes, I don't know if I agree with that as well. That is going to do it for college basketball, but we'll go to from the hardwood to the gridiron. That's right, the Alliance of American Football. Once again, we're back with it. Week 2, and we are finally seeing some contenders kind of step themselves out a little bit. It's funny, actually, after week 1, the Birmingham Iron, of course, shut out the Memphis Express, and the quarterback for the Birmingham Iron had, I believe it was like 6 NFL teams reach out to him about a training camp. Dude, like, that is insane. Just from one game in the AAF gets an NFL team at least interested in you. Imagine what an entire season, if you can keep that up, can do. So, of course, with this week, we saw 2 games on Saturday and 2 games on Sunday. The same format we're always going to see for the rest of the season. The first on Saturday, we had the Orlando Apollos playing against the San Antonio Commanders, and the Apollos get the win 37-29. Remember, the Apollos coached by the great ball coach, Steve Spurrier. So big time win for Orlando as they moved to 2-0 on the season. Then we had the San Diego Fleet against the Atlanta Legends. Actually, I believe I told you incorrectly. I believe that was the Sunday action. trying to see here if I don't know if I actually see. Yes, that is the Sunday action. My apologies. And of course, so we had the Apollos taking home a win, and then after that we had on Sunday, if I can get the San Diego Fleet defeating the Atlanta Legends 24-12. On Saturday, however, the Birmingham Iron continued to stay undefeated, 12-9 against the Salt Lake Stallions. And on Saturday night, a lead was blown. The Memphis Express, with a 16-0 lead, lose it 20-18 to the Arizona Hotshots. So once again, exciting action from week 2. And again, this is a promising league that is still fun to watch. It's a second chance for some. It's a new chance it's just a chance for some. And it's maybe a chance for a return. And so once again, I'm excited for it. I really am enjoying watching the league so far. Isaiah, what are your thoughts early about the league, and how do you think it's going to maybe impact football as we know it in the future?
I like the league personally. It's interesting. I like that there's less penalties. I like that there's more freedom for the players. I like the assigning of teams, like we talked about last week. And I think it'll change football in that we might. I don't know. I don't think the NFL will do away with free agency to do like a team assigning, like the AAF has. I don't think that we'll see that. But I think we will. We might see next season with the popularity of the AAF, less penalties be called, allowing more big hits, not more dangerous hits, but more big hits, because not all big hits are extremely dangerous. And just see the excitement from players. And I think it'll change football in that I know they're not trying to be a competitor, but when it comes to athletic ability, the AAF is not a competitor by any means. But when it comes to viewers, they are a competitor, and the XFL is just going to compete even more when it comes to viewing when they begin. So, and then the Freedom Football League on top of that. So there's going to be a lot of competition when it comes to viewing, and I think it could make the NFL more exciting in the future.
And once again, these leagues, the best thing the AAF ever did, once again, was the time that they put this league in that they put it in to where there's no football going on right now. And you know that the minute, because we all as football fans, as much as we hate whenever our teams don't make the Super Bowl, the week after the Super Bowl, it sucks. You don't have football to watch. It's so depressing because even when college football ends, you still have NFL football to fall back on. Here, the way they did the AAF, well, the Super Bowl ends, you have the AAF to look forward to next week. It may not be the same brand of football. It may not be the same necessarily standard of football, but it's still football to watch, and it's still something that you really enjoy. Going into the standings, however, of course, the AAF working on a different standing scale than the NFL because one, less teams, and two, they just do it in a latitude, or I guess in a geographical aspect instead of just randomly in certain conferences. So for the East Division, the Birmingham Iron and the Orlando Apollo still lead 2-0, both of them. The Atlanta Legends and the Memphis Express both 0-2 in the league. In the West Division, we have the Arizona Hotshots at 2-0 on top of the division. The San Antonio Commanders and the San Diego Fleet are tied for second and third at 1-1, and the Salt Lake City Stallions sit at 0-2. Of course, one of the main playmakers for the Stallions was former Carolina Panthers wide receiver Kalen Clay, who attended college at the University of Utah, as you know, because of the assigning, and he got injured earlier in the season, so they've missed him. There's been a lot of injuries with Salt Lake City, and so they're sitting 0-2, but only 3 teams 0-2 right now, 3 teams 2-0 right now, and shaping up to be yet, like I said, an exciting season here in the AAF. And once again, for the second straight week, we didn't plan on covering NFL. We didn't want to cover NFL, but certain stories have come out today that have forced us to talk about the NFL. So news came out earlier today, and this has just been, honestly, this off season has been the Antonio Brown show for the most part. Now, obviously, big developing stories on the side as well. But earlier today, Dan Rooney and Antonio Brown met in person in an actual conversation and not missed phone calls, and basically figured out what they wanted to do with their future. And it has come out that the Pittsburgh Steelers are officially exploring trade options, and they expect Antonio Brown to be moved before the season begins. Once again, that could bring in a lot of different things. Like you could bring in a lot of NBA or a lot of other NFL teams that think, if you're trying to get rid of him, then we can kind of lowball an offer and try to do that. That doesn't mean anything. The Steelers still hold the leverage on what they're trying to do. I mean, of course, Antonio Brown, if they don't find a deal that's suitable enough, he could start the season in a Steelers uniform. We don't know. But once again, Antonio Brown, now on the trade block on both sides, both with him and with the Steelers, and some notable teams that have actually come out as front runners, at least I've seen, or maybe some good ideas, are the San Francisco 49ers, the New York Jets, and I've even seen the Arizona Cardinals mentioned every once in a while as well. So, once again, in big-time development there. Odell Beckham, another one that's been in a lot of trade rumors lately, and there's been thoughts that they may end up on the same team. What are your thoughts on that, and do you think that there is a team that can get it done, and not only get it done, but instantly turn into a contender by getting both Odell Beckham and Antonio Brown?
First, I do think that when it comes to them playing on the same team, they're very close friends. Before every game that they meet up, they dance together and pray together, and it's interesting listening to them mic'd up. It's an interesting relationship there. So I think if they're given the option of possibly where to go, which I think both organizations may give them somewhat of a say at least, I think they'll try to end up on the same team. And if that's the case, it'll either be the Niners or the Jets. I would lean more toward the Jets. They have more stuff to give up, more talent to give up, I would say, that they might be willing to part with. And it's not that far for either one of them to travel. And I think that would create them as an instant contender. I'm glad you mentioned the Cardinals one because I wasn't, me being a fan of the team, I wasn't going to mention it unless you mentioned it. But I think it would be interesting because if they get Odell or AB, whoever takes that, whoever, if they make a trade for one of them, whoever it is, then it'll be interesting seeing. They do have some pieces to give up as well. It'd be interesting to see because Fitzgerald may be gone after this year. Every year it's just one more year. So it's going to be a passing of the torch. And for 1 year, there will be a very dynamic offense to go along with the good defense with David Johnson, Larry Fitzgerald, AB/Odell. They signed Charles Clay today, Christian Kirk. It could be a very dynamic offense as well if Kingsbury can get Josh Rosen going. So I don't know. I would like to see that personally. But I think whichever team, if they both go to the same team, whatever team it is, they are an instant contender in my opinion.
I like what you said there, and I also just want to ask you a hypothetical here. For both, and this goes for both Arizona and the New York Jets. So, in the case of the Pittsburgh Steelers, because I know the Giants, they don't really, they could use one of the pieces, I'm going to say. But as far as one of them, they're not going to really need it. The Steelers, they could. So, in your mind, for the New York Jets, do you think they can do a deal that's fair enough and that the Steelers will accept without including Jamal Adams? And then for the Cardinals, would you think that, and this goes for both teams, because both teams, this is a position of need for both of them, do you think they would be able to do a deal without getting rid of Patrick Peterson?
From the Jets and Jamal Charles, I like this, or Jamal Adams. I like this because I was actually thinking about this last night, or it might have been this morning. I was talking to one of my friends about it. I like Adams, and the Jets will not part with him for anyone, I don't think, unless they're offered Tom Brady. They're not going to part with him. So I think that they'll keep him at any cost. But defensively, you got to look at the pieces they have. They have Tremaine Johnson, a good number one or fringe number two corner. Really solid player. He can play some safety as well. You have what defensive lineman do they have? They are
Leonard Williams, I know, is also.
Yeah, Leonard Williams is on the trade block. It's projected he's been on the trade block as well. So you could package Johnson and Leonard Williams possibly, and maybe a second-round pick. I mean, that's big-name players. If you're going to bolster your offense, and they have some really young core players on the defense, I think that'd be probably best for the Jets. So the Steelers are getting a draft pick, and they're getting two. They need players on defense, and you're getting two solid, Pro Bowl potential defensive players. You go. Before I go to the Cardinals, you can.
And once again, with that deal, the way you described it too, that doesn't work for just Pittsburgh. That also panders to the Giants as well, because as we know they have Landon Collins. We know they have good safeties. Their corners are a little bit rough, of course, losing Eli Apple that last year to the New Orleans Saints. But we know that the cornerback is probably a position of need, corner and quarterback. back for the Giants right now. So once again, that would be a deal that could pander to both of them if they are disgruntled enough and really want to move Odell. Because it sounds the more like the more time goes by, the more it seems that not only the players are frustrated with the team, it's just the teams are frustrated with the players. The teams want them out for that reason. Of course, as we said, Rooney trying to meet with them last week couldn't do it. They actually had to do it this week. So now, what are your thoughts in the Arizona trade, potentially with Patrick Peterson?
Okay, so I'd like to point out the similarities from the Giants and Steelers' needs too. They have very similar needs in that they both need quarterbacks for the future, but the Giants are more urgent. They need it sooner. And the Giants' offensive line needs a little help as well. But other than that, their needs are pretty similar on both sides. The Giants need outside backer. You guys got TJ Watt. Not as urgent of a need either. When it comes to what the Cardinals have to offer, I don't think they would trade Peterson anyway, since they just signed Mario Alford, a lot of money to be the number 2 corner. I would say Budda Baker, but I don't think they'll part with Budda Baker unless Tyrann Mathieu decides to re-sign with Arizona, which I don't see in any way, shape, or form. There's an aging safety, Antoine Bethea, who was putting up all-pro numbers before he got hurt, not this season, but the year before. He's a defensive leader, captain. He kind of plays like Ed Reed, but not as flashy and obviously not as talented as Ed Reed. So he's an interesting piece, especially if the Cardinals re-sign Trey Boston. I think it would be Antoine Bethea, and there's been talks of them trading young middle/outside backer Hassan Reddick, and then defensive tackle Robert Kimdichie, who's he's on the final year of his rookie deal. There's been talk of them cutting him. So there's a guy they're willing to cut, a guy they're willing to trade, and a guy that's aging. You trade those pieces, and I think the Cardinals would be willing to offer not the first round pick because they got the first overall, but maybe a second or third rounder with those pieces, or maybe just Reddick, Kimdichie in a third rounder for one of those guys. And if the Giants are interested, maybe throw in Mike Upati, a solid guard. Has injury problems, but when he's on the field, he's very solid. So I could see that working out for whichever team as well.
I do go on what you said about throwing in Bethea. I want to read to you the Giants' set of corners right now. So it's Janoris Jenkins, respectable, decent corner in the league. And then it's really just a bunch of nobodies. There really isn't. I'll read you the names of them. There's Ronald Zamort. You have Antonio Hamilton, Sam Beal, Grant Haley, B.W. Webb, and Curtis Riley. Not a great secondary. Not a great set of corners there. I would think if you compare them, the Steelers' secondary is just a tad bit better, but it's really not that much better. Maybe you have Joe Hayden, you have Artie Burns, who has shown flashes, but he was overall not great in his second and third season. You have players like Sean Davis, who shows potential every once in a while as well. Morgan Burnett came in, but was really underwhelming. Terrell Edmonds is a little bit of a promising spot, as he showed spots in his rookie season, and hopefully will improve. But once again, the safeties aren't necessarily the biggest concern. Now, if you're the Giants or the Steelers, like I said, Jamal Adams gets involved in any kind of deal, you will take that in a heartbeat. But safeties, to me, aren't as big of a concern as it would be corners in that sense. So the Bethea deal, although it's a good deal, and of course I would think that probably the Steelers would take it because they're going to be probably out of free safety this year because Morgan Burnett went out as well. So they would probably think about that as well. But the Giants, on the other hand, with Landon Collins, they may want to look a different direction.
I'm glad you mentioned that as well because I wasn't thinking too much, but you have Patrick Peterson on one side. I mentioned the signing of Alford on the other side, and the slot corner for Arizona has been Budda Baker. He's been playing a flex slot corner / free safety role, sometimes strong safety, and it does leave an odd man out. A guy the Cardinals have, Brandon Williams, nicknamed Slim. He's a tall, lanky receiver. Build is a lot like Peterson. Just as physical as Peterson. Just as fast. But the reason he hasn't played much for Arizona is because he's only played cornerback 2 years in the NFL. I think 3 now. And a year in college because he was a running back prior. So he doesn't have much experience. When he has played, he's gotten game-stealing interceptions. He's a good tackler. He's a good, well-rounded player, but he's more developmental. And I think the signing of Alford just shows how little the Cardinals are buying into him developing into a number 2. So he might also, he's on a very small rookie contract. He was like a 3rd or 4th round pick. So it may be just another incentive to be like, this guy has potential. So are you going to take it or, take it or leave it? Just as kind of like, just an extra incentive to be like, you sure you don't want to take this or think about it at least?
We will know for sure what the teams will be offering here in the upcoming future, because once again, at the beginning of March, we will see a lot of trade offers being revealed and what could be the moving of, again, both Antonio Brown and Odell Beckham Jr. from the New York Giants. Breaking news coming out today. Now, moving on back to the hardwood in the NBA world, it's the All-Star break. So we're finally in it. All-Star Weekend festivities this past weekend are over. The All-Star game, we were treated to a fun and exciting All-Star weekend. The slam dunk contest was saved a little bit, going off of what we saw on Saturday night. It started off with the skills challenge. Jason Tatum of the Boston Celtics in his 2nd season takes home the trophy after knocking out Trae Young of the Atlanta Hawks on a half-court shot. Running down the court, just threw it up and banked it in on Trae Young as he was shooting his 3 to finish the round. Tatum wins the skills challenge, and I believe it's like the 4th or 5th year they're doing this format to where it's front court versus back court. I believe the front court has won quite a few times, which is surprising. So Tatum is probably a flex. He could play either or. So Tatum winning the skills challenge in the 3-point contest. Curry, clinic in the first round, 27 points, 10 in a row at one point as well. But it all came down to the final round. And when it comes to 3-point contests, the first round really doesn't matter. It just comes, as long as you get into the final round, you have a chance. And Joe Harris wins the 3-point contest with a 25 in the final round. That is a 26 in the final round. He had 25 in the first round and had a perfect money ball rack. So the 5 money balls that he shot out of a rack made all 5 of them, and he wins the 3-point contest with a 26 in the final round, beating the greatest shooter of all time in Stephen Curry. Then, for the dunk contest, it was pretty forgettable, except for one dunk. Hamidou Diallo, player for the Oklahoma City Thunder, brought out Shaquille O'Neal and had a rip in his jersey. And of course, for those that don't know, there was a big beef back in the day between Shaquille O'Neal and Dwight Howard because both went under the name Superman. Both thought they had their own right to having it. And so there was a big beef about that back in the day. Well, Diallo sides with Shaq, brought him out, did the Superman reveal, has a Superman logo underneath his jersey, and he did the Vince Carter honey dip over Shaquille O'Neal. What's insane to me is that wasn't his final dunk. That was his second dunk. He didn't use that for his third dunk. He used that as his second. Of course, he got a 50 on that as well, because absolute insanity, not only to jump over Shaquille O'Neal, but to honey dip, which for those that don't know, honey dip is when you stick your entire arm into the rim and you're hanging by your elbow. That could destroy some people's arms, but not Diallo. He wins the dunk contest and had that fantastic dunk. And Dennis Smith Jr. also had a notable appearance as he brought out J. Cole, famous rapper, and dunked over him in the dunk contest, also getting a 50 for that as well. And finally, it all led up to Sunday night, the NBA All-Star Game. Once again, we saw Team LeBron against Team Giannis. Some fantastic matchups in that game. And we have some stats here for you. And it was actually funny, the LeBron James-led Team LeBron, obviously, was down for a good part of the game. I believe they were down like 18 at one point. And so after that, they went on a little bit of a tear and ended up winning, which we know LeBron. He's famous for comebacks. So, big-time performances. Kevin Durant wins MVP. I'm trying to pull up some stats right here for you. I'm not quite sure why they're not wanting to pull up. He had a little over 30 points. Giannis Antetokounmpo, I believe, like 38 and 11 in the game as well. So, ridiculous effort from Giannis on the other side. But Team LeBron beats Team Length, as Giannis called it. And the final score of that game, 178 to 164. Absolute insanity. What do you think about the All-Star game? Did you learn a few things here? And what were your original thoughts? Also, one more thing before I forget about it. Dirk Nowitzki and Dwayne Wade both scoring in this game. Dirk Nowitzki with 9 points on 3 3-point shots.
Dude, I would say what I learned was that Steph did, I think it was a reverse dunk. He ooped it to himself, bounced it off the floor, and did a reverse dunk on an open fast break. I'd love to see it in a game. I'd love to see it in the finals, but he's not going to take that risk. But I'd love to see it. And I like the oop to Giannis, bouncing it off the floor again, and it was beautiful. It was absolutely beautiful. But I would say, like, I just think it's fun seeing the athletes just playing and enjoying the game. Without, of course, they're competitors, so they're going to try to win, but they're going to joke around, not be as serious, and I enjoy that. And I think, especially in the middle of the season, I like that's when the All-Star break is, because it lets them enjoy it. And yeah, they're friends for a moment, not enemies. And I don't know, I think it just shows you the players' personalities, in a less serious environment.
Another stat in this game: 168 3-point shots taken. They made 62 of them. Both teams connecting, and those are both records as well. Just insane. Absolutely ridiculous numbers. I also forgot to mention the Rising Stars Challenge had the Team USA defeat Team World, and Kyle Kuzma takes home the player of the game with a 161 to 144 win for Team USA. Now, to the standings review. Now we're post All-Star break. We're not going to have much action to cover until Thursday, Friday in that situation, that area. So the players are enjoying their little bit of a break right now. So going into the All-Star break, we have in the Eastern Conference the Milwaukee Bucks still leading 43-14, the Toronto Raptors at 43-16, the Indiana Pacers at 38-20, the Boston Celtics at 31-21, the Philadelphia 76ers now tied, and once again Boston making a move up, tying the Sixers in record 37-21. The Brooklyn Nets at 30-29. Number 7 is the Charlotte Hornets at 27-30. And the Detroit Pistons and the Miami Heat both tied at 26-30 for the 8th seed in the Eastern Conference. My thoughts on this so far is I believe that Miami's going to end up figuring their act together. They're not going to miss the playoffs in Dwayne Wade's last year. I refuse to believe that. I'll believe it when I see it. Brooklyn's been impressive to me, especially for a team that I did not expect to be anywhere near the playoffs, let alone 6th seed in the Eastern Conference. Charlotte still being led by Kemba Walker. And Boston, they're figuring a few things out, actually tying the Sixers, which I talked about it last time. The Sixers, while they have a dangerous and fantastic starting five, their reserves, their bench is not good. That's not a secret. And so Sixers, that could be a little bit of exposed as we see the Celtics move up to the 4th spot. Contenders, pretenders in this Eastern Conference, or do you like the way this is stacking up, or do you think there's going to be a team that is in for a rise or fall?
I'll be honest, I like the way, I want to see Miami make playoffs in ways last year, but I like the way things are shaking out. I like that of course, teams like the Wizards are not playing as well as some people would have expected going into the year. But then, you do have some surprise teams, like the Pistons have played, started off the season very well, and they're kind of hanging on to that last spot, though I don't expect them to keep it. Indiana, without Oladipo, playing very well. So I don't know, I really, and they're actually, they just lost their first game in a few games too. I don't expect them to slide too much. So I don't know, I don't really see any pretenders or anything within the Eastern Conference. I like it. I think a sleeper would be, honestly, Miami. If they get into playoffs with Wade's last run, I think they could be a sleeper, a dark horse team. But I don't really see any pretenders in the playoff race right now for the Eastern Conference.
Spoiler alert, 3 teams out of the playoffs in the Western Conference would be in the playoffs if it was in the Eastern Conference. So just getting that out of the way now, going into the Western Conference. Number 1 is the Golden State Warriors. Guess who? 41-16. Still a fantastic team. Lost their last game going to the All-Star break, but still, they're going to be great. They're probably going to win the NBA Finals this year. The Denver Nuggets are right behind them at 39-18, 2 games behind them. Of course, they've won 2 straight going into the All-Star game. Oklahoma City is right behind them at 4 games behind Oklahoma City, 37-20. Portland is 34-23 in the 4th spot. Number 5 is Houston at 33-24. Number 6 is Utah, the Jazz at 32-25. Number 7 is the San Antonio Spurs at 33-26. And the LA Clippers are at 32-27. LeBron James slipping further and further out of the playoff picture right now, 2 games behind. 3 games back from the 8th spot, as Sacramento is above them as well. Lakers sitting at the 10th spot in the Western Conference. Do you think that the Lakers are going to rebound? Do you think that this could be the first year we've seen since 2005 where the LeBron James team has not even made the playoffs? Which is still insane to think about, but it's going to be its first time in over a decade. We not only haven't seen LeBron James in the finals, but not in the playoffs.
I mean, this is kindly as possible, but I hope they miss playoffs. Not because I have anything against LeBron. I respect him, and I honestly thought he was going to take them to at least like the 3rd spot in the conference. But I think that's what happens when you offer your whole team to trade one player. You get played yourself. And I think they deserve it. Do the players deserve it? No. But the front office, the people calling shots, Magic Johnson, they deserve to not make the playoffs. And I hate it for the young guys. I hate it for LeBron because it will taint LeBron's legacy to an extent, given he missed a lot of time. And if he didn't miss that time, they'd probably be in the playoff race. They would be, to me, no doubt. But I think that I hate it for the players, but I think the front office, the organization, deserves it with how they try to treat their players.
If you know me, it's no secret. I hate the Lakers. I do. I have no reason to like the Lakers. I'm bitter. They knocked out my team in the in the 2000s whenever they had some of their best teams. I am very bitter about that. But I think LeBron being out, if LeBron's in the lineup and he's playing, they're a tough team. They're a fantastic team. But LeBron missing that time really exposed them into showing just how rough of a team they are without him. Because we know, is Lonzo Ball expected to go out and be the next shot creator and just dropping 20 a night? No, that was never supposed to be his thing. But Brandon Ingram and Kyle Kuzma can't pass the ball. It seems like he has to shoot every single time. They're just so selfish with it. Whenever LeBron is not on the floor, and again, the Lakers are a great team with LeBron on the floor, but I think him missing that time, and we saw how much the Lakers struggled going from the 3rd seed in the Western Conference all the way down to the 10th spot now, shows just how rough that team can be. I am a personal believer, and I say that team is not much better than what LeBron had when they went to the finals last year with Cleveland. I really believe that. And that same Cleveland team right now is 12-46. Talent-wise, I think that they are a very similar team. Of course, Los Angeles, younger. They have more potential. They could be great in the future. But in this Western Conference, nothing is guaranteed. A lot of people were saying LeBron James, and I think LeBron will sneak his way in. As much as I hate it, I think they will find their way into the playoff race, at the very least getting the 8th spot, which would be a great series between the Warriors and Lakers. But, like I said, it just goes to show. So many people, the minute LeBron said, I'm going to LA, they thought, oh, well, it's over. Warriors' reign's over. No, nothing is guaranteed. The Warriors are the only thing that's guaranteed is probably the Warriors are going to win the championship again. That's just because they have 5 All-Stars in the starting lineup. Let's be real. And in a deep team. But that is about it. You can't say, like, for example, the Denver Nuggets right now, 39-18. It is entirely possible for them to fall completely out of the playoff picture if they were to stop playing well tomorrow. Or Oklahoma City. Or it's even possible for the Dallas Mavericks to go on an absolute tear and get into the playoff race. It's entirely possible. Nothing is guaranteed in this shootout of a Western Conference. And that goes to show, like, even when you think, oh, LeBron James making the playoffs, absolutely, that's going to happen. May not. As, again, like I said, this is probably the best conference we've seen from any sport ever right now in the Western Conference. So, after that little bit of a rant, we're going to go and just briefly, before we wrap up the show, breaking news out of Major League Baseball. major news. No, not Bryce Harper, the other big name free agent. Manny Machado going to the San Diego Padres for 10 years and $300 million. That is a contract you only hear in baseball. Well, you could hear it in soccer, but baseball, insane. Manny Machado being a little bit of a public enemy in MLB right now after his antics on the field, showing a little bit of maybe unclassy moves here and there. But 10 years, no one can deny his talent. He is a very talented baseball player. Last year, batted .297, could not quite get the 300 mark, but when you're batting in a lineup of the Dodgers, when you have so many playmakers, you don't necessarily need to hit 300 to still have an impact. He was a main reason the Dodgers made it to the World Series last year after he was traded from the Baltimore Orioles, where he spent all of his early career. So he goes to the San Diego Padres, and it seems like the Padres every once in a while get this big name free agent, but they can never really do anything for it. And if there is a team in Major League Baseball that I just feel sorry for, is the San Diego Padres, because they've never been that great. Tony Gwynn, back in the day, Hall of Famer, but still, they weren't like they aren't looked at as like an all-time great franchise. Like, you can even look at the Miami Marlins right now, who is, without a doubt, the worst team in baseball. But you take a look at the early 2000s, they won the World Series twice. They still had their time of greatness. The Padres had Tony Gwynn. That's about all they had. They got Matt Kemp. When he was coming out of L.A., and they were like, oh, that's a big-time free agent signing. They had a decent outfield. They didn't do anything with it. So once again, the Padres getting a big-time talent there in Manny Machado. And once again, it's possible they could sign both Machado and Bryce Harper if cap room worked out for them. Don't know how the cap's going to work, considering you just gave Manny Machado that much money. But we'll have to see. And there's been reports that Bryce Harper is expected to sign with the Philadelphia Phillies. No guarantees there. And that would be huge, because if he goes to the Phillies, that's not only going in division, but you're going to a rival. And the Phillies get that much tougher in the NL East. So we'll keep track of the Bryce Harper moves towards the end of the season, towards the end of the offseason. But Manny Machado, the other biggest name free agent, is now off the market, headed to San Diego for the next decade. That is going to do it here on Hot Takes with Holmes here from Radio Free Radford. If you like what you heard today, then be sure to like our Facebook page. Some of you are watching that live right now on our Facebook Live, which we have that going. We'll have that going every single week, so if you'd rather watch it on camera, we will be on camera just kind of doing what we do here on Facebook Live. So if you wanted to be able to do that, be sure to like and follow our Facebook page, and also my personal Facebook page is where it goes live, but the broadcast will be shared. It'll be at Hot Takes with Holmes on Facebook. Also, we're on YouTube, where all of our broadcasts are uploaded to. And so if you missed a part of this broadcast, or you want to go back and watch some of our old broadcasts, you're more than welcome to do that. It is youtube.com/Hot Takes with Holmes, Hot Takes with Holmes for both of the sites. Again, if you want to support the station, you like what you hear on Radio Free Radford, follow their social media pages. Their Twitter is at Radio Free Ratty, Instagram and Facebook, Radio Free Radford. Once again, Twitter at Radio Free Ratty, Instagram and Facebook, Radio Free Radford. So that's going to do it for us. My name is Blake Holmes, and for my co-host Isaiah Addair, we'll see you next week here on Radio Free Radford.